Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Francesca Falzarano, and I am a T32 postdoctoral fellow at Weill Cornell Medicine, and I am the lead of the Gerontological Society of America's Emerging Scholar and Professional Organization Professional Development Webinar Task Force. On behalf of all of our ESPO Webinar Task Force members, we would like to welcome you to this webinar titled Navigating the Job Market During and Beyond the COVID-19 Era, developed by the Gerontological Society of America and supported by the Innovation Fund. The webinar is being recorded and will be posted on the GSA website, and we will send a notice to all attendees once the recording is available. We will have a question and answer session that will immediately follow the live presentation. In this webinar, we'll allot around 15 minutes toward the end of the presentation for questions, and you can type your questions through the control panel on your screen in the question box area at any point during the presentation. So our expert panel who will be speaking today are Dr. Justin Lord and Dr. Bei Wu. And on today's agenda, both of our experts will be discussing their stories and providing their insight on navigating a difficult job market. So our first speaker is Dr. Justin Lord. Dr. Lord is an assistant professor with dual appointments in the Department of Accounting and the James K. Elrod Health Administration Department in the College of Business at Louisiana State University, Shreveport. He earned his doctoral degree in Health Services Administration from the University of Alabama at Birmingham and an MBA from Jacksonville State University. Dr. Lord is a certified managerial accountant and a fellow of the Healthcare Financial Management Association. He's worked for several years as the finance director for a multi-state not-for-profit healthcare and at Honda Manufacturing as a financial analyst. His research focuses on the financial management of long-term care organizations. In 2016, he was awarded the Ruth L. Kirschstein National Service Award by the Agency for Healthcare Research and Quality. In his first year of teaching at LSUS, Dr. Lord was awarded Professor of the Year by the student body, and in his second year, he was awarded the Outstanding Faculty Award in Teaching by his colleagues. Dr. Lord is with us today to share his insight and experiences on how to navigate the job search in a difficult market. Dr. Lord, when you're ready, I will turn it over to you.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that warm introduction, Francesca. And I'd really like to thank, before I get started, ESPO as well as the GSA Innovation Fund for inviting me to be part of this panel today. I'm very excited to be speaking with you today about job searching in a difficult market if I only knew then what I know now. Next slide, please. So just a little bit about me. I know the whole COVID, I know we have a lot of individuals on the call with different backgrounds, education, career goals, and I know this whole COVID-19 situation can really almost seem to be a giant roadblock in our professional careers. But I am an eternal optimist, and I just want to tell you that things will work out. If you take a look at my path, you can see it's quite curvy. And throughout my professional career, you know, I've faced several roadblocks and I've had to change course. And I just want to tell you that things will ultimately work out. It just may not be the original path that we had envisioned. Next slide, please. Now, we're going to speak about the current environment, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And COVID-19 has really been unprecedented, and it has impacted all aspects of our lives. And academia is no exception. And I'm sure in our own organizations, we have kind of seen how it has impacted how administrators have tried to contain or respond to this issue, how faculty members have had to change their courses, and how students and parents are reacting to this crisis. And there is no perfect plan or answer. You know, things are constantly changing. We don't know what our spring will look like, and this has really kind of cast a pall on all aspects of, you know, all aspects of the university, including job searches. And this uncertainty in academia has really led to some downward financial pressure for a lot of universities, as a lot of universities have faced falling enrollment, decreases in supplemental income, as students may not feel as comfortable residing in housing or dorms, and then continued downward pressure from state governments, which was already in play. And so universities are really trying to adjust to some of these new financial realities by promoting early retirement. Some universities have reduced benefits and pay, eliminated underperforming programs, and postponed job searches, which is what we're going to kind of be talking about today, all in an attempt to really adapt to a new model of delivering education. And the job search, even before this pandemic, it was already a difficult, stressful, competitive process. And the whole COVID-19 situation has just added another layer of complexity to our job search. But next slide, please. But I do believe that in time, this too shall pass. We will eventually reach a new normal as it relates to how we address this pandemic. And as individuals who are possibly working on our degrees or getting ready to go out on the job market, I do want to tell you that the long-term positive outlook is good. For doctoral scientists, the field is growing 8% faster than average. Getting your advanced degree, you will experience higher average pay. And unemployment rates are still below the national average. And your degree that you're currently working on, it will open up new doors, just maybe not the ones that you originally thought. Next slide, please. So for those of you who are kind of caught in this situation, who are going out there on the job market, and you're kind of asking yourself, well, what should I do right now? Well, I think with this crisis, it should really teach us that we need to be resilient, adaptable, and flexible. Because as you go out on the job market, on future job searches, I think being adaptable and being flexible is going to be a trait that is more highly valued in the job market. As we can see from last spring, when a lot of universities had to pivot very quickly from face-to-face courses to online. And, some of our colleagues, were less comfortable making that change as quickly. And so I think going through this crisis, this pandemic, it will teach us that being flexible, being adaptable is very, very valuable in our future job market. And so I think we should kind of learn from this. Also, as we go out there, I do know that there has been a little bit of constriction as it relates to job postings. And you might have certain job postings that you want to go up for, that you are qualified for. You meet the definitions of what they're asking for, but you might think that that organization is possibly out of reach, or it may not be on what your original career path was. But I would encourage you to not shut the door on yourself. Go ahead, and if you feel calling for it, go ahead and apply for that position. Because the worst thing that anyone can ever say as you're going out in the job market or looking for anything is no. So don't shut that door on yourself before you even have a chance. And if you don't find a position out there right now that you think would be a right fit for your career, you can also look for other postdoc opportunities. Through National Institutes of Health, there's visiting fellowship programs. Through the National Institutes of Aging and Agency for Healthcare Research and Quality, there are T32 and F32 postdoc individual awards. And so those are always opportunities to continue to expand your research and collaborations if you don't find a tenure track position that you feel would be a right fit for you. I would also encourage you to be flexible in your academic search. And so I know that a lot of us, when we're going out on the job market, we might have a handful of schools that we really want to apply to, and that's kind of our dream schools that we want to obtain a position in. But those opportunities may not be there right now. And so if you feel comfortable, I would say be willing to expand your academic search. You know, maybe look at an institution that is outside, outside of what your career goal is, but recognize the potential trade-offs that you might face if you were only applying to R1 institutions because you really enjoy research and going after grants and things of that nature. If you're moving more towards a teaching institution, realize what some of those trade-offs are going to be and recognize the impact that it might have on your future career. And these are individual choices that you're going to have to make depending on what your long-term goals ultimately are. And then I know this might sound taboo to some individuals, but I would talk about also the private sector. There's always a need for research scientists in the private sector, but realize once again, if you're looking at trade-offs or expanding your academic search of going from an R1 to more of a teaching institution, there are going to be trade-offs in the private sector as well. There's going to definitely be a different culture than what a lot of us are used to in academia. There might be less autonomy, but also recognize you might have a very successful career in the private sector. And it doesn't even have to be in a for-profit organization. There are other employment opportunities in CMS, ARC, and other government entities where they need research scientists as well. Next slide, please. Now, I just kind of get on a little soapbox, and this is just my own personal opinion. As you're going out in the job market, a lot of individuals are going to be offering you advice on your career. And I would highly encourage you to listen to as many individuals as you can, but you ultimately have to do what is right for you, because this is your future, no one else's. And when you take a look at where you want to be in 5, 10, 20 years, you have to be happy with the choices that you ultimately made. And so even before you go out on the job market, I would highly recommend, if you haven't done this already, sit down and do a self-reflection on what truly makes you happy. For me, I love engaging in research. When I started my doctoral program, I really kind of got bit by the research bug. But what wakes me up in the morning is teaching. I absolutely love teaching my students and helping prepare them for their future careers. And I realized that is what would give me the most satisfaction in my career. And so if you haven't done this already, you really need to reflect on what will ultimately make you happy, because that is what will make you successful in your career. So what are you ultimately trying to do? And realize that even though it may be a stressful experience during the COVID-19 searching for jobs, I do believe that this crisis will lead to new opportunities in the future. And for those of you who are on your first, second, third year of your doctoral program, I would encourage you, as you go through your program, to really kind of take a look at the forest through the trees. Because I've had a lot of colleagues who've often lost sight of the big picture. What was their ultimate goal of going into their doctoral program? What were they trying to accomplish? And sometimes we become so enraptured in papers and research projects, we forget why we're there. We forget to focus on our dissertation and preparing ourselves to be marketable on the job market. Next slide, please. So what should I do to prepare to go out on the job market? Well, first of all, I would encourage you to be your own advocate. And it might sound dirty, but as you go out in the job market, you're really going to have to sell yourself. You're going to have to market yourself for whatever position you have chosen for yourself. So if I'm going to an R1 institution and where there's more focus on research, I'm going to emphasize my grant funding. I'm going to emphasize my ability to conduct research independently, and what I can bring to the table in regards to being a productive researcher. If I'm going to a school that emphasizes teaching a little bit more, I'm going to adjust my story to emphasize more of my experiences as a TA or courses that I prepped, my experiences with students, how I was able to mentor students. So as you go to different organizations, just as you adjust your cover letters and other things of that nature, you also have to adjust your presentation and really kind of emphasize your particular strengths and traits that that organization might be looking for. And as you set yourself up for success, you can't start too early on this. You're going to have to differentiate yourself. And in academia, that really a lot of us focus on, or a lot of our focus is on our research, on our publications, on our grant funding. And that is very, very valuable. But I would also encourage you and challenge you, don't forget about service or other things of that nature. Get involved with ESPO, get involved with GSA, because universities and other organizations, they're really looking for someone who will excel not only in research, teaching, but also service. And this is a way for you to differentiate yourself. As I said before, you have to identify where you want to go. Ultimately, what is your career goal that will make you happy 20 years from now? And you have to engage in things that will move you and help create that path. And then the last thing I would say, and this is especially true in this current environment, I know sometimes it can be a little disheartening, but you have to keep moving forward. Please do not get discouraged about, there may not be the job postings that I want, or, that there certain jobs have been taken off the market. Please do not don't allow yourself to give up. That is the absolute worst thing. You have to keep your forward momentum. You have to keep that energy up, because ultimately things will work out. Next slide, please. Now, when you do land that first job, you're going to have to know you're going to have to know the culture of that organization. And some of you might say, well, how do I really get to know the culture of the organization before I accept a position? Well, as you go out on your job talks, remember, as you're going through the interview process, as much as they are interviewing you, you are interviewing them. And, just pay attention to look up for those subtle cues of, how collegial they appear to be. If you think that you'd be a right fit, if you think that there would be good mentorship in that department or in that college or university. And so really kind of know that culture before you get in there. And as you do this, understand what the goals of that organization are. We always talk about the 3 pillars of a successful academic career: research, teaching, and service. But, some organizations actually do have different weights of importance that they apply to those things. And so make sure that you fully understand the goals of that organization. And also, I would encourage you to be flexible enough to meet those goals, and also flexible enough to realize that things may not be the same as they were at your previous institution. I've had a lot of colleagues right now, as universities have been responding to financial pressures, and where they have cut funding for conferences or publications or travel, other things of that nature, and where, I've heard some of my colleagues say, well, that's unfair. It's what was promised to me. Well, I encourage them to say, yes, it's may not be fair or right, but don't cut your nose to spite your face, because realize that you're setting yourself up to have a successful career in that organization. And you don't want to identify yourself as kind of being a troublemaker, really kind of causing issues. Because remember, you have that long-term goal of ultimately becoming a tenured faculty member. When you do land that first job, I'd highly recommend time management is the most important thing that you can remember, especially if you don't have any time put aside for you to prep your courses. If you're coming in and there's an expectation that you're going to be teaching 1 or 2 courses, you're really going to have very strong time management skills in order to create those courses and be able to deliver those successfully while continuing your research. And so you have to balance your research, teaching, and service. A lot of individuals will spend way too much time on one of these without realizing that they're all integral to your success. And so I would say saying no is okay, especially as a first-year student. And I know it can be difficult, but it is okay to say. Be focused, set your agenda, work for the long run, long term, and document the process. If you go to an organization, and I'll try to speed it up, that has FBR, annual reviews or third year reviews or other things of that nature, it can be very difficult to go back annually or 3 years or 5 years from now and really document everything that we have done well. So this is the accountant in me speaking, but I would say document all positive emails that you get, all positive things that you have contributed to that organization, and really have an entrepreneurial spirit. Next slide, please. And then personal tips, just avoid drama and politics. Some really good advice I got was keep your door open to students and keep it closed to drama, and it has served me well. You may not know the full history, and you don't want to get on someone's bad side, so just stay out of it. And you might have to find your team. And if you're working in an organization and where you're going to have to go out and you might have to knock on the doors, and if you didn't get that position in a university where you thought you would have great mentors, it doesn't mean you still can't work with those individuals. Reach out to those individuals and share what your research stream is. Share why you would love to collaborate with them. I think you'd be pleasantly surprised to see how open and willing they are to collaborate. And the worst possible thing they can say is no. And then as you teach, remember that we are training and educating the next generation of healthcare leaders. Remember to focus on the big picture, encourage and promote these students, because as we talk about transformational change in healthcare, it's ultimately going to start with them, the next generation. Next slide, please. All right, and I just really appreciate the opportunity to the GSA Innovation Fund and ESPO for allowing me to speak on this panel. If this presentation helped, that's great. If not, I'm sorry, I'll buy you a cup of coffee next time I see you at GSA. Please feel free to always reach out if you have any questions or concerns. Next slide, and that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lord. That was such a wonderful presentation. And now we're going to move on to our next speaker, who is Dr. Bei Wu. Dr. Wu is a Dean's Professor in Global Health and Director for Global Health and Aging Research at the New York University Rory Myers College of Nursing. She is also co-director of the NYU Aging Incubator, Director for Research at the Hartford Institute for Geriatric Nursing, and co-director of the Research and Education Core on the NIH-funded Asian Resources Center for Minority Aging Research. She's led a significant number of projects as PI supported by federal agencies such as the NIH and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Currently, she's leading an NIH-funded clinical trial to improve oral health for persons with mild dementia. Her extensive publications cover topics related to oral health, long-term care, dementia, and caregiving. Dr. Wu is an internationally known leader in gerontology, and she has established significant collaborations with researchers across various disciplines. She is a fellow of GSA, the Association for Gerontology in Higher Education, and the New York Academy of Medicine. For the past 2 decades, she's successfully mentored several dozens of junior faculty, postdoctoral fellows, and graduate students in the US and abroad. And today she's going to share her knowledge with us about best practices on how to effectively navigate the job market during these challenging times. And Dr. Wu, I'll now turn it over to you.
Thank you, Francisca. Can you hear me clearly?
So we can hear you clearly. Thank you.
Oh, great. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for attending this webinar. I would also like to thank the GSA Expo to invite me to speak at this webinar. So, interestingly, when I told my daughter, who is a college student, about the seminar, she looked very surprised and she said to me, "What do you know about finding academic position during COVID? You started your academic career 20 years ago." Wow. So please let me know how actually what you think after you hear my talk and see whether the information that I share with you is relevant or useful to you or not. So as our previous speaker discussed, actually a quite broad range of topics with regard to how to search for a job in this difficult time. I would be actually more focused on finding academic positions during and beyond the COVID-19 era. So since I have spent most of my career in academia, so this is what I'm going to focus on. Next slide, please. So for many GSA Expo members, I think that the ideal position that you're trying to find is a tenure track position. So, and also as a professor, that I have mentored many my PhD students and the postdocs, I certainly hope that after they graduate or after they finish their postdoc, they can find a position in the university, ideally as a tenure track assistant professor. And also, as we, for example, as we help our mentees to apply for a K award, or we apply for a T32 grant, we need to actually demonstrate how many former mentees and former students hold a position in academia. So that's also our hope, our expectation that we actually, our mentees can get these kind of positions. It almost actually become kind of a benchmark for a mentor's success. So this is the culture that we're in right now. However, that we need to realize that in the current environment, finding an academic position is more challenging than before. Next slide, please. So, and we all know that we have heard over and over again from my colleagues across the nation that our universities are in a big financial loss. First, we see a big drop of enrollment in international students. That is, it's coming. So, for example, at NYU, that we have almost 28% our student body is international students. So, given the current environment with visa issues, with political issues, and all these anti-immigrant kind of fiasco, so no doubt there will be a drop in student enrollment. So based on some estimates, we may actually lose 400,000 students, and the American economy is about actually $15 billion that as a consequence, as a result of this. So plus with the close of campus and the move courses from in-person to online teaching, there's a big loss of accommodation fees and the cost of moving courses online, etc. So currently hiring freeze are the new norm in the university. But having said that, I'm going to offer some other kind of things that are in the next few slides. There's a hope. It's not just like that. It's really kind of a dark future, the picture that I want to kind of portray. And at this point, unemployment is actually hit kind of close to approximately 16%. And employers layoff follow the millions that we actually see, and we read from news. That's the current environment. Next slide, please. So I just gave you an example. Think about just the changes in employment by healthcare settings that through February through April 2020. But things actually are improving, and with the kind of restart of the economy, that we certainly will see a job, actually more jobs will be available in the near future. Fingers crossed. Next slide, please. So for search strategies, these are kind of common knowledge. I don't need to spend a lot of time to talk about that. These slides are real-time list of employers that are hiring. LinkedIn is one of the kind of most popular site for job hunting. And there's also kind of many social medias that sites available that you can look for information. Next slide, please. So what I really want to focus here is actually networking and the referrals, because I believe that the majority of job openings are found through kind of networking and the referrals, particularly in these kind of academic positions, tenure track or research assistant kind of research scientist kind of positions. So you can certainly through kind of JSA and other professional organizations' websites, whenever we have positions open, we would like to actually inform JSA and Chronicles in higher education, these kind of news outlet. And APHA, American Society on Aging, all these kind of websites. But also actually your advisors' suggestions, your advisors' network, so that it is for your advisor's best interest that you land in a good position. So that so he or she may know colleagues that have job openings. So when I found my postdocs through these kind of colleagues, referrals, that through our personal kind of connections. Oh, you have so I'm looking for a postdoc. So do you have anybody that you can recommend? So here you go. So these through colleagues referrals. I quite often receive messages from my colleagues say, hey, I have this postdoc position open. Please kind of pass along this information. That's what we do. So, and also think about contact PIs who have recently received funding. So, for example, that right now, just for the past months, literally past months, that I saw 4 notice of award from NIH. That 2 as me as a principal investigator, 2 as a co-investigator. So NIH certainly has fundings available that and some like COVID-related fundings and particularly Alzheimer's related research fundings. So for the past several months, you clearly see a lot of people, a lot of faculties are writing grants like crazy. So that's but as a return, we do see fundings are coming. So through many or social medias, many PIs will tweet news that they receive funding from NIH or from ARC or from other organizations. Like I tweet mine, so like, yes, I have this funding. Just last week, I tweeted this postdoc. I have a postdoc position available, etc. So some colleagues or colleges or schools will share this type of kind of funding news by Twitter or other social medias. So that I would suggest you to look at this kind of carefully, and please contact the PIs that if you see that they receive funding. Because most are ones that will budget for research scientists or postdoc in their grant applications, and most likely they have research scientists or postdoc positions open for their newly funded projects. So trying to be kind of proactive, look for these kind of opportunities and contact PIs. So as our previous speaker Justin has said, there's you certainly have a lot of need to have interview skills. Now it's become kind of online interview skills become more important. I don't want to kind of go into details about this, but And also, as he mentioned, it may take a few steps before you have your dream job, as Justin has laid out very nicely in that. So if you cannot find the tenure track assistant professor positions right after you kind of finish your postdocs, you can look for some other positions that either as a research scientist or actually in more kind of in teaching intensive colleges. So as long as you keep your research productivity going, that eventually you will land your dream jobs. If actually it's academia, that's what you want to work in. So that's kind of thing, to be persistent, and that's all we need at this point. Next slide, please. So certainly, actually, from the another end of spectrum, now I am actually in a position to look for to interview candidates, to look for, and for my own project and for my college. So certainly, these are the kind of things that are most important that when we look at it, is the publications, research fundings. Oh, granted that as a newly graduate from a PhD program or postdoc, you may not have, of course, you may not have heavily kind of funded the research kind of portfolio, but that if you have some research fundings, this is a really ideal position, which actually I'm going to talk about in the next slide also. And the teaching experience, because it's always kind of research and teaching and the services. We know this is really leg of stool, that for tenure track kind of positions. So I clearly see for the past 10 years or so, there's increasing competitiveness about actually for our new graduates, that publications like 10 years ago or 20 years ago, if you have 2 or 3 publications right after you graduate, it's pretty nice. But now that if you want to find a job in really heavily research intensive universities, that may not be enough. That you need to actually have your first author's publications, and you need to actually maybe have more kind of with other team members kind of publications. I see some people already have 10 or even 20 publications that after you finish your postdoc. So this has become really a trend of increasing competitiveness. The research fundings, people are actually getting this K99 R00 fundings as more and more commonly that I see. So teaching experiences, to try to get yourself prepared to have some teaching experiences while you're in your doctoral program or you're a postdoc. Although postdoc, you are not required to teach, but please actually work with your mentor or work and ask your colleagues in the school, say, I would like to provide maybe guest lectures, etc. So you can gain kind of teaching experiences and show track records of your teaching experiences. So these are the things that we need to really keep in mind. Publication is gold, basically. Next slide, please. So in addition to the current T32, F32, as Justin said earlier, it would be actually really helpful if you can be more proactive and actively seeking funding on your own while you're still at the doctoral program, while you're still a postdoc. So there's several actually, NIH has several funding mechanisms that I would actually draw your attention to. So first is this K99 and the R00. This is actually, I see it's really a nice funding mechanism. I encourage my postdocs to apply. I encourage my mentees from other universities who are postdocs actually to apply for that. It's called, actually, this is a pathway to Independence Award. So this award does not require an application with permanent resident status or U.S. citizen. So this is actually a very good mechanism for postdoc to apply for. That is K99 is a postdoc phase, and then after 2 years, you start with R00 phase. That's actually that once you finish this K-99 phase, it often requires you to have a faculty position at another academic institution. In this case, the chances of having a tenure track position is actually quite high because people see that you have research funding that you can bring into the college or school. So this is really, again, that is a really good funding opportunity. So please look for the NIH website have this funding mechanism. Another is KO1. This is a Research Scientist Development Award. The purpose of the KO1 award is to provide the intensive supervised research and the career development experience for non-clinician doctoral researchers as they transition to independent research careers. Currently, I'm a primary mentor for a KO1 award, somebody from Columbia University. So that's actually, as an assistant professor, to apply for this kind of K award is a really ideal kind of position to do. So then here's a K23. It's for actually, it's a mentor, the patient-oriented research career development award. It's mainly actually for clinicians that can apply. And the K76 is the Emerging Leaders Career Development Award. It's also for junior faculties to develop a cadre of talented scientists that kind of prepare and willing to take an active leadership role in transforming changes that will lead to improve the healthcare outcomes. So this is K76. And the F99 and the K00, it's also a very nice funding mechanism. It's a newly established from NIH to actually encourage individual pre-doctoral students to apply. So this is a pre-doc to postdoc fellow transition award. So that F99 is for that to still fund you as a graduate, as a PhD student. But then K00 phase usually can apply for from 3 to 4 years. That actually is to fund you that your postdoc kind of a position. So you don't need to have a mentor that fund you as a postdoc. So you actually apply for funding that cover your postdoc kind of position. So this is also a very nice one that as for international students can also apply. So currently actually I'm working with 2 doctoral students from other universities to apply for this funding, which actually due next month, October. Next, please. Next slide. So yeah, I know this is, I'm running out of time for this, so that I need to be quick to finish my talk. So living in this environment, working from home and not having direct contact with friends, colleagues, and students, many of us have experienced anxiety, loneliness, and the social isolation. So just please let you know, this is not just you, and many of us do that and have this kind of problems. But we need to overcome this. This mental status could potentially affect our work. So, and also in the meantime, there's so many actually competing demands on our time. So it is really important that I will say to my mentees, and they say it's really important to say no to others' requests and just focus on. I know it is hard to do. I have a problem with myself. It's hard to do for me also. So, however, this is important for us to prioritize what's the most important things that we need to focus, we need to accomplish, so that actually can advance our career. And also, it is in order to increase our research productivity, we need to focus on writing. It's so important to focus on writing. So this is the key to your success if you want to stay in academia and if you want to be successful in your academic career. So in the block, it's important to block a chunk of time every day to write. Just try to put this as a pattern. Write every day, regardless what happens. So Francisca, I want to actually skip the next two slides, please. So I want to actually just think about, next please. So we are actually, I believe that out of crisis comes opportunity, that aging-related issues have gained unprecedented attention at this point. The COVID-19 has revealed and exacerbated many problems and issues that this nation is facing, and also globally. So we researchers have seen so many issues that need to study and need to address. So I strongly believe that there will be more opportunities and job openings in the future in the gerontological field, in the US and globally. But now what we need to do is just stay focused and try to get this prepared. Next slide, please. So I just want to have a quote to end my talk. We must accept definitive disappointment, but never lose infinite hope. There's a hope. I believe that. Next slide, please. So I would like to acknowledge the support from the JSA Oral Health work group. I'm a member of this work group, and that our members also have provided input to this talk as well. And also, again, thank JSA Expo for the invitation. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your informative insight, Dr. Wu. That was absolutely fantastic. And before we move on to the Q&A portion of the webinar, I would like to extend our sincerest gratitude to our two speakers for their time and effort in preparing this webinar and for sharing their knowledge with us. I have to say, even throughout this webinar, I've gotten so much positive feedback on our speakers about how useful and needed this type of presentation is. So we are so grateful. For our attendees here, we have listed our speakers' contact information in case there's anything you'd like to follow up on. And I also want to remind you that we are recording this session, and we will send you an access link by email once the recording is available. And you will also be able to download a copy of the presentation slides from our website. So now we are going to move on to the Q&A portion of our webinar. And just a reminder, you can type your questions through the control panel on your screen in the question box. So first, I think this question, Dr. Wu, you touched upon this a little bit, but somebody asked what funding options are available for international students, or really any other options that international students can pursue without citizenship. Do you have any insight on that?
Oh, yeah, sorry, I was on mute. Yes, as I touched upon, there certainly is a K-99 R00 funding is available for postdoc, that regardless your visa status. So for international postdocs, you certainly can apply. That actually I see I'm also working with a postdoc actually on this grant as well. And for doctoral students, this is a very nice kind of funding mechanism. It's actually just 2 years old. For this funding mechanism is a F99K00. So this is also actually can for international doctoral students and can apply for. I'm working with two actually PhD students on this grant on applications in response to this funding mechanism.
That's really, really helpful. And to follow up on that, somebody asked, as a student in the 4th year of her PhD program, is it too late to apply for the F99K00 mechanism?
Oh, it depends on your institution. Sometimes actually you can apply for an extension. For you really need to talk to your advisor and your dean to think about if you want to apply for this, whether some actually university can extend your status in that sense. It's all actually individual basis.
Right.
Yeah, I think certainly actually 3rd year is the ideal kind of year to apply for, but 4th year it's not too late that you can just think about come up with a strategy for that.
Great, thank you. And I think this could go to both of our speakers, but do you have any tips for networking during online conferences like this upcoming GSA conference?
Yeah.
This is Jeff.
Go.
No, please go ahead, Dr. Wu.
Oh, please go ahead. I said, yeah, after you. Thank you.
Okay. I would say, I know the virtual conferences are different, but I would still say they're extremely valuable. With the GSA conference, attend the sessions, attend as many sessions as you can, because, you will start to see some of the individuals who are coming in to the sessions, and they'll start to kind of recognize your profile, ask questions just the same way at a regular conference, go when you're on the virtual conference, be an active participant, often, I will reach out to presenters afterwards. They'll often share their contact information, and, it's just a way to touch base. And you say, hey, if this was an area that I found extremely engaging or excited about, it's a way to kind of grow that network. And it will especially mean something now in today's climate, because this is all something new that we're getting used to. And so kind of reaching out to those individuals probably mean even more.
Absolutely.
Yes, this is a good point. In addition, that actually GSA, for example, GSA, that we will have a lot of interest group meetings. So interest group meeting, which means actually people have similar interests, will be kind of get together. I think actually that this kind of interest group will be in October, which is next month. That I strongly encourage you to attend these kind of interest group. Search online to see what kind of interest group meetings you want to attend. Then you got a chance to actually see who are the members, and you can start kind of connecting these people. And also, additionally, I want to actually make a point for these outside of GSA, these kind of professional meetings. When you see, pay attention to publications coming out of your field. And for some senior faculties, that I very often actually receive messages from across the nation and across the globe, and introduce themselves, send CVs to me and say, hey, Dr. Wu, here's my CV, that I just wonder whether you have some opportunities, that whether you have a position open, or even actually say, yes, I want to apply for a grant. So whether actually you can be a mentor for my grant. So these kind of things happen all the time. So please proactively, and don't be shy. Reach out to other people. I think most of people are willing to help, and most people are interested actually in collaboration. So that's my 2 cents.
That's very helpful. And somebody asked, are there any advantages to reaching out to funded PIs who are not in the location you're willing to move to, but whose research is in line with your own? Do you think, more potential for remote involvement going forward?
Yeah. You ask, yes.
Either
sure.
one.
No. So yes, it does. That, in particular, it depends on, actually, there's several scenarios, okay? So it depends on what kind of funding they receive, or what kind of projects they receive. For example, like some projects are secondary data analysis. So it does not actually really require like primary data collection. So secondary data analysis make remote kind of work much easier. So if you're really kind of excellent in have all the skills that the PI is looking for, that certainly can actually reach agreement in that sense. And particularly in this environment, we don't see each other anyway. So that's what but maybe primary data collection makes it a bit difficult in that sense. So it really depends on the funding. It really depends on PI's interest. It depends on the strength, how strong that you are, that PI actually kind of really want to kind of accommodate this arrangement and working with you. So that's what, and it depends on what kind of research project involved. But certainly, I'm not saying it's not a possibility. Need to explore opportunities.
Right.
And I'm sorry, I would just echo Dr. Wu. Reaching out to that PI, you're still making that initial contact. And, as Dr. Wu said, she gets CVs and other individuals who are reaching out to her. And so even if there's not an opportunity with that current project, you never know what the future may hold. Just reaching out, it might lead to down the road future collaboration, which then might lead to other opportunities at that institution.
Right.
That's true. Right. Yes. Yeah.
And I think we have time for one more. And if we don't get to your questions today, we're happy to send these to our speakers afterwards and get their responses. So one person asked, how do we know which PIs have received funding from any type of, from the NIA or NIH?
Okay. So certainly there's you can, most actually this kind of once a PI receive funding, that if it's a big grant or a small grant, you will see it from the website, the college's website, NYU, Duke, Columbia, all these kind of websites. If you're in nursing, if you're in gerontology, in sociology, that you probably have some good idea, like who are these kind of funded investigators are. That you can also actually follow their Twitter account, follow their social media account, because these are the kind of now these days. Actually, I was not Twitter kind of savvy, but now I use more and more Twitter, so to tweet. So this kind of so just a social media and the website. These are the things that you can find out. Mm-hmm.
Yes, definitely. And to add on to that, there's also NIH Reporter, which I found personally to be a really great resource to see which PIs are funded as well.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
And I think we can do one more. So because in-person talks are not possible right now, do you think institutions will hold virtual job talks? Will there be a greater emphasis on virtual interviews only now?
This is Justin. I do think that colleges and universities have realized what they can do virtually. I think this might have been the push for some of them to kind of move from out of their comfort zone. So I think in the future, even after the COVID-19 pandemic, it's my personal belief that we will still see a little bit more emphasis on the virtual aspect of it. But, I do think that, once this pandemic is over, things will thaw and, we will still have in person, because that is still incredibly important. But I do think that there'll be an increased emphasis on virtual meetings and appointments.
Thank you so
much.
Yes,
I agree. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Great. Thank you both again for such a wonderful presentation today. It has been so helpful. And before we wrap up, I want to extend a few friendly reminders to our attendees. We have registration now open for GSA's annual scientific meeting, which we know will be virtual this year, and it will feature streaming, on-demand symposia, paper and poster presentations, live discussions with presenters, and there's plenty of opportunities for networking, including special programming for students and early career professionals. And we do have a reduced registration rate for students, so you can visit www.geron.org for more information. And I also want to point out that a webinar survey is going to automatically launch after the webinar, and we want to continually improve this series. So we really want to hear your thoughts, and this feedback is incredibly valuable and helpful for us as we plan future webinars. And you can provide feedback by clicking the survey link at the end of the webinar. And once again, thank you so much to our speakers for their time and effort in preparing this webinar. And thank you to our attendees for attending and participating. We hope that you found this a useful and meaningful experience. I know I learned so many helpful lessons that I will be taking with me. So thank you to both Dr. Lord and Dr. Wu for your expert input. And I hope all of you have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you.